What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, we're talking transfer tips ahead of Game Week 12. So we're going to look at some of the popular players that have been transferred in, out. Are people making the right decision? Should they be keeping, buying, selling, etc.? So if you enjoy it, please do give it a like. Hit that subscribe button if you're new around here, and let's jump into it. Okay, so I'm a little bit surprised at this one, right? So much so that before I started recording this little bit, I went and double checked that yes, forwards transfers in this round, so between game week 11 and 12, Antonio is the most brought forward at 121,000 transfers in. Kane, for example, is only the fourth most brought forward so far. Now, obviously, some people are probably on wildcards. That's probably inflating the numbers a little bit for some players, and obviously a lot of people are probably waiting until last minute to make their transfers, like on Friday or Saturday. But Antonio's had 121,000 transfers in. I don't quite get it. He's got Man City away and Chelsea at home. Now, again, I've said this for the last couple of weeks. For those of us that own him, you've probably slightly missed the boat to sell him. I think it was probably last week was the time you wanted to sell him, especially if you can bench him in game week 13. That is a tough fixture. It's the hardest fixture you can have, I would say. Wolves away, Brighton at home. You don't mind playing him in that, but Man City away, especially if you can bench him, that's kind of perfect. I don't really know why you'd buy him right now. The next four fixtures are pretty tricky. You play four pretty good defences, and two of them are the best two defences in the league, right? So if you don't already own, probably not the right time to buy. I guess the question is, though, if you're not buying Antonio and you need a cheap striker, maybe some people are going Vardy to Antonio to fund a move for Son, for example. Who else do you get? And there's probably not too many other options around that price. So Callum Wilson's the one that stands out. I think over the next four fixtures, he's got pretty decent ones. And then you could look to maybe get Antonio back. So if you got Wilson in for game weeks 12 to 15 and then got Antonio in afterwards, so Wilson's fixtures would be Brentford at home, Norwich at home, Burnley at home in the next four, with Arsenal away thrown in. So there are a couple of other players you could go for. I must admit, though, looking at the list, there's not too many. Like Jimenez, we'll have to wait and see if he's even going to be available because he's obviously playing against Mexico, missed out last time. Gabriel Jesus could be a nice little option, but Man City are obviously coming into a period like other clubs where there's lots of games in quick succession. Huang maybe to save some money, and like I said, Callum Wilson, Tony, for example. I'm not going to talk about him too much in this this video because people are probably getting sick of it. But yeah, I don't ever mind buying Antonio. I just don't think now is the right time to do it. I'd maybe, for the next four game weeks, bet on Callum Wilson instead. It all kind of depends what Antonio does against Wolves and Brighton, because I think against Man City and Chelsea, we're not expecting too many points. But if you're bringing him in and you've got a decent squad, you can bench him in 13, then play him in 14. Obviously, you just keep him all the way through then. Don't really see a huge issue with it. So I don't think it's a bad transfer in. I'm just a little bit surprised it's so high. So I just realised there's quite a few cheap midfielders in this video. So we'll start off with Rowe. So really great form. Scored in three of the last three. He scored 3 in 3 basically. One in each of the last 3 games. He's also made his debut for England. He scored in that as well. Yes, okay, the opposition was fairly easy. Right? It's one of the easiest games England are ever going to have and Rowe is ever going to have. But still got on the score sheet, right? So he is in good goal scoring form. Now, whether or not that will continue, you know this now. I look at the kind of expected goals, expected assists, and try and draw some conclusions from that. And look, these numbers, again, it's only after 10 game weeks. His numbers might improve. They might get worse. We don't know yet. We're trying to make a prediction or a guess based on what we know right now. And the numbers, they're okay, right? They're nothing special. There's nothing to shout home about. Like 0.32 expected goal involvement. So his XG is 0.2 per 90. His expected assists are 0.1. And I know what a lot of people are going to say. Who cares about expected data? That's not what gets you points, which is fair enough. But we're trying to predict returns in the future. So someone like Gallagher, for example, and Mbeumo, they've both got higher numbers for a similar price, right? And obviously Mbeumo's hit the post a lot of times, been a bit unlucky. Gallagher's looked really good. So the question is now a good time to buy Rowe? Are these returns going to dry up? And I think this guy, like, we can talk about confidence. I put out a tweet that kind of sums this up, right? Lingard gets quite a few returns, assists and goals. That continues. Everyone says it's confidence. Benrahma gets a goal and assist in the first 2 game weeks. And then he only gets 2 returns in 9 after that. Bowen goes and gets a few returns and goes on a streak of like 7 games now? There's variance in FPL. Sometimes you get on these players, the streak continues. Sometimes it doesn't. That is FPL. My guess is these returns, this goal every game is going to dry up soon, and I think Liverpool away and Man United away in the next 3 is the perfect time for that to happen, and therefore I don't think it's necessarily the best time to be buying Smith Rowe. But what I will say is he does seem to have a knack of arriving in the box at the right time. This streak could continue. Who knows, right? It's only a prediction. And also, he's so cheap that he could be a squad player. So if you can bench him against Liverpool, play him against Newcastle, maybe bench him against Man United, although if they're playing as they have been, it's probably a good fixture to play him in. Then you've got Everton and Southampton. You can make a decision how the rest of your squad is looking. So again, I don't necessarily think it's a bad transfer in because he's so cheap, but I do think for the price, there are probably better options over the next few weeks. So I'm going to say 192,000 managers in. It's not a bad purchase. I just don't think he's the midfielder I'd be buying right now. So this is probably the midfielder that I would buy right now if I wanted someone around 5.8 million, 5.5, and I was annoyed with Mboma. I still think you can make a case for Mboma, by the way, but again, I know people are sick of hearing about Brentford. He can't keep being that unlucky with hitting the woodwork, right? Some point the goals are going to go in. He's also got good fixtures, but so does Gallagher. His numbers are also decent. He's had 356,000 transfers in, which is pretty crazy. And 5 of the next 6 are pretty decent. I'm still not putting Man United down as this really easy fixture. Although right now you wouldn't be too afraid of having to play Gallagher in that. And again, he's the same price as Smith Rowe, so you could kind of rotate him a little bit if you wanted to. He could be the way that you get Harry Kane in if you need a cheap midfielder. And the next 3 in particular look really good. Of course, 2 of them are away, Burnley and Leeds, which isn't ideal. And obviously Villa have got a new manager. Gerrard he did speak about, I haven't seen the interview in full, but I think it was about player positioning, how far, basically the kind of spaces they're leaving between players when they haven't got the ball, right, when they're transitioning to a defensive kind of setup. So he's obviously aware of what the issues are with Villa, and he might make them better defensively. How quickly that happens, we'll have to wait and see. But right now I'm looking at those fixtures and thinking they're pretty good. I'm looking at his underlying numbers, expected goals, expected assists. They're looking pretty good as well. He also seems to have a pretty good knack of arriving in the box. He gets close to goals. He's got the legs to do it as well, right? He's one of those midfielders, kind of a bit like a box-to-box, but he's always in and around the penalty box in the right place for scoring goals, getting assists as well. He also played pretty well when he came on for England, albeit he didn't get a return last night. Again, easier opposition. So he's also in really great form. I just feel like he's got the numbers to kind of back it up a little bit more than Smith Rowe. Now, again, like I will say, like expected data is not perfect, right? It's not perfect. I can't sit here and tell you that Conor Gallagher's numbers are going to stay that high and Smith Rowe's are going to stay that low. They could converge and meet in the middle, right? Smith Rowe's could come up, Gallagher's could go down. You've got to make that kind of call for yourself. But I'm looking at the fixtures and looking at the numbers, and I don't really see right now, at least for the next kind of 3 fixtures, and probably over the next 6, why I would go for Smith Rowe over Gallagher. I think Smith Rowe's great. He's not looked bad at all this season. Very happy that he's got the England call-up, and I'm just happy with England's squad depth in general. But I think Gallagher's probably the one that I would go with. Although, again, if you've got Mboma, I wouldn't be switching him out for either of these 2. Jamie Vardy, I feel like he makes it into this video every single week, but he's quite highly transferred out, 111,000 managers. What I will say, right, I'm going to try and play a little bit of devil's advocate here, but I will be open and honest and say, I'm probably going to sell Vardy this week, right? It's almost certainly going to happen. Unless there's some injuries, especially to Spurs players, I don't really see why I wouldn't sell him this week. But in the back of my mind, right, and it's very easy to say this because obviously fixtures do dictate our transfers. If that Chelsea game was at the end of this run, he had Watford, Southampton, Villa and Newcastle coming up in a stretch of 4 game weeks, would we be so quick to sell him? Or is the Chelsea game just making it a very easy thing to do? If he gets a return in that Chelsea game, which is going to be difficult because Chelsea are an extremely good defence, then I think people that keep him will be extremely happy because you've got your return in your hard game, and then you've got 3 pretty nice fixtures to come. Again, same caveats. Villa have got a new manager. Let's wait and see. Newcastle obviously going to have a new manager too. Watford have got a new manager. Everyone's got a new manager, right? But they are still on paper 4 pretty good fixtures. And also, I keep predicting that Jamie Vardy is going to slow down, and he just doesn't seem to be doing that. Again, his underlying numbers are pretty decent so far. His goal threat has been good. He's still getting the right positions. They're obviously resting him a bit in Europe as well, which is helping. Plenty of goals so far. I don't think he's had any penalties either. So he's more than a good enough option, but the question just comes is he a better option than the Spurs players? And I think the fact that Spurs have Leeds this week rather than a more difficult game is making everyone switch over. Like if I bring up Spurs fixtures here, we know they've got Leeds, Burnley away, Brentford at home, Norwich at home. I mean, they do probably have an easier run over those 4 fixtures than Vardy does in his 4 fixtures. So not only do they have a better run, they have it right now as well. Plus, obviously, Spurs players are fairly low on. We know a lot of people are going to bring him in this week, but there's still going to be somewhat of a differential. Not a huge differential, but somewhat. And also, I think if Spurs play well and if other things don't go right or you get other fires to put out and you can't quickly switch to a Man United player, I've said this before, I don't think it's the worst thing to have to hold them through Brighton and Leicester. And then obviously after the Liverpool game, you got some pretty nice fixtures over Christmas. And in the past, Kane and Son have been about as nailed on as you're going to get. Now, obviously under Conte, things might change. They might be so good that you want to keep them all the way through. They might be so bad that you want to get rid of them straight away. You have that flexibility. And I do think a lot of these sales are because of Spurs players. So I can't say it's a bad thing because I'm probably going to do it myself. But a little bit of devil's advocate. After that Chelsea game, if you can get through that game, he has some really nice fixtures. So if you can figure out a way to get a Spurs player without selling Vardy, I don't think that's that bad of a call. And obviously there are a lot of cheap midfielders that will enable you to do that. So it all depends what other moves you want to make. If selling Vardy makes it easier, fair enough. He's got Chelsea. You hope he blanks. And then obviously Spurs have also got some nice fixtures when Vardy has his. But that is a pretty decent run. I don't think it would be too questioned if you wanted to keep him, right? Yes, okay, he went on this kind of hot streak of goals, and that's kind of dried up a little bit, and a lot of us are frustrated because we bought him in and he didn't do it straight away, but he's got the fixtures to do it. So if you want to keep him, I think it's a good move. But at the same time, if you're selling for Spurs, I can't really argue against it because I'm probably going to do it too. So obviously because of the start of the season, I've already mentioned Benrahma. He's still got fairly high ownership, so he's been transferred out by 88,000 managers. Yeah, I don't really see too much reason to hold on to him. Look, to be honest, I think he's playing quite well for West Ham, even if the returns aren't coming. If you look at his numbers, 0.35 expected goal involvement. It's a little bit higher than Smith Rowe per 90. And he has scored, I think, 3 goals this season so far, but obviously they've been quite spread out. I think if you've got him, you could keep him for Wolves away. Like if you've got other fires to put out, like you want to get a Spurs player and selling Benrahma doesn't help with that, or you want to get in Reece James or Cancelo or Trent, whoever it is, and you need to keep Benrahma for another week. I don't think you need to like rush out and take a hit to get rid of him. I don't think he's that bad, right? I think he's perfectly okay to keep for Wolves away, but over this fixture run, it's pretty tough. I think you can kind of make a case for Antonio because there aren't a huge amount of other strikers. Plus, Antonio's underlying stats are just incredible, right? They're in an elite level compared to like a lot of other Premier League players. But with Benrahma, that's not the case. You've got a bunch of other cheap midfielders that are doing well, especially Gallagher, who we just spoke about with the fixtures. So I do think it's probably time to have a plan to get rid of him because even when the fixtures turn in game week 16, you could make a case to keep Benrahma because of that, right? Especially if you can kind of sub him in and out of your team. But I think around game week 16 when the fixtures turn, a lot of people are going to be looking at Bowen, whose underlying numbers are even better, right, if we're looking at expected data. So I think his role in the team looks pretty safe. I think he started every single game in the Premier League. He's obviously playing in an advanced position. I do think he will continue to kind of tick over as the season goes on. Obviously, it's frustrating for own. Like in some ways, it's frustrating because you wish you'd sold him after the kind of 2 goals, 2 assists, right? Because then the returns kind of dried up. But he's still got like what I think six returns so far this season in 11 games. I mean, that's not that bad. If he could do that for the rest of the season, he'd be a bit of a bargain. So I don't actually have a big problem with holding on to him. But I do think like if you've got a free transfer to go to Gallagher, that seems fine. But keep him for Wolves, bench him for City, play him against Brighton, then keep him for that good run. I don't think that's completely, out of this world thing to do, like this like inconceivable transfer plan. But yeah, if you're selling him, no problem with it. There are probably better players out there, but you could hold on to him for a little while longer if you wanted to. But I think most people are going to go for Bowen if they go for a West Ham midfielder later on. So there we go, that is it for this one. If you did enjoy it, please do give it a like. Keep hitting that subscribe button. We are on our way to 250k before the game week 12 deadline. We can definitely do it. So keep hitting that subscribe button if you're enjoying the content. I'll be back tomorrow with my team selection video where I'm going to talk through Son versus Kane for about the 15th time this international break because I need to make the decision soon. And it's tough. I've got 2 ways of doing it. That's probably going to be my moves this week, but I need to talk around how it kind of works and what the future transfer plans might be. So that will be coming tomorrow. If you enjoyed this one, like I said, give it a like, hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you again soon.